So there's a major PS4 error baked into the console. Basically, if your clock becomes unsynced or the battery, the CMOS battery on board dies, all of your games, digital and physical, become utterly useless. Let's talk about that. Alrighty guys, sharing my screen here, I have an article pulled up with some pretty highlights on it. This will be linked in the description below. I always cite my sources. So this is buzzing all over the place. There's articles written by a ton of gaming journalists. There is a lot of YouTube videos about it and whatnot. So I thought I'd jump on the bandwagon a little bit and give my 2 cents as to why this really isn't a big deal at all. Now, I'm not going to say that it couldn't happen to some people, but it would be a very, very small group of people. And by the time this becomes a major issue, you most likely won't even have a PS4 unless you're keeping it as a retro console. So according to dataminers that basically look into the operating system files of the PS4, it has an error when the PS4 CMOS battery dies. Error code right here. That renders all PS4 digital files unusable without a server connection. The error also pulls the plug on disc playback, so physical and digital games, unusable. As a result, you cannot connect to PSN. The error could render all of your games completely useless. Word of the error comes from the way of Does It Play and Lance McDonald. The latter, which reveals the error, is because trophies on the PS4 require the console's internal clock system to be correct to prevent players from changing their PS4 date and time to make it look like they got trophies earlier or later than they actually did. Who is doing this? I'm curious. Is anybody watching this video? Do you do that to cheese your trophies? What do you get from that? What would anybody actually gain from that? Just flexing rights at the bar? Just being like, yeah, I unlocked that trophy in Uncharted like 2 weeks before you. Or yeah, I got that trophy week 1. Like, who cares? Like, I don't really see that being... I don't really even see the benefit of people changing their date and time to show a false time of them getting a trophy. It doesn't make any sense. Also, I do think the fact that a major bug like this or major... game crippling error is being caused by something as minuscule as trophies is kind of stupid. Of course, this one is only a problem if the PSN ever goes away. If PlayStation Network ever goes away. Had to reiterate that 3 times because if you read a lot of the journalistic articles and a bunch of the YouTube videos out there, they have literally the titles like, your PS4 is going to crash and become a brick, and it has a thumbnail of some guy like, oh, it's like a PS4 on fire behind him and stuff like that. Yeah, I could make this video like that and get probably an extra, I don't know, a couple hundred or maybe an extra 1,000 views on it. But that's false advertising. That's clickbaiting, basically. That's you clicking on here thinking, holy shit, my PS4 that I've got down there in the den is gonna become useless for me. But that's not really the case, considering, first of all, your battery, your CMOS battery, which does the internal clock, has to die. Which I've owned 3 PS4s now. And none of them had any issues. I just upgraded from different PS4 versions and whatnot. And so 1, you have to have a battery that dies. 2, those are replaceable. 3, this only becomes an issue if the PlayStation Network is gone, which I do not foresee happening. Granted, Sega, back during the Sega Genesis, Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast days, were a major force in the gaming industry. Now it's Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony. So I guess, something like Sega could happen to Sony, but I don't really foresee that being the thing. They can't produce enough PS5s to get on the shelf for people to buy. Well, probably a lot of scalpers, but for the average consumers to get their hands on them, I don't think the PSN is going to go away. What is more likely is that the portion of PSN servers that support the PS4 will shut down when the PS4 becomes a little bit more legacy or retro. They're starting to do that now. They're rolling that out with a lot of PS3 titles as well as PS Vita and PSP. They're starting to reduce support for that on the store where you cannot purchase any more digital games. So you're going to have to get those through GameStop, used physical copies. And they're also stopping patches and updates. So that's going to make these consoles, these handheld and home consoles eventually fizzle out and die. But PSN going away as a whole, I don't foresee that happening. Like I said, yeah, PlayStation might eventually make it to where they don't support the PS4 on the store, but that is going to be a long way off. Like, they're just now reducing some functionality for the PS2 and like a tiny bit of functionality for the PS3. And those consoles are quite old now. There's a good chance your PS4 CMOS battery will eventually die. Where is this information based on? I'd like to see a percentage, a statistic of how many PS4s produced day one, consoles from November 15th, 2013, when the PlayStation 4 came out. How many of those, so the oldest possible PS4s right now, the ones that were bought day one, the launch editions, how many of those have the CMOS batteries actually died? I have tons of friends that have PS4s. I've never talked to anyone that's had their CMOS battery die. In fact, it's basically inevitable. Is it? Or are you just sprucing up this journalistic fluff over here? However, it's hard to imagine a future where PSN doesn't exist, obvi. However, when and if that future arrives, this will be a huge problem, though thankfully it can be fixed. And it can be avoided completely with a jailbroken console. That is very true. You can unlock or block a lot of features that Sony does or does not want you to see by jailbreaking. But a lot of people don't know how or don't want to. Now, granted, I think more people will want to jailbreak the PS4 as it becomes their secondary console, or it's just an old one they have sitting in their bedroom or something like that, and their primary becomes a PS5, maybe 2-3 years down the road when more people are able to and maybe can afford to get a PS5. And then their PS4 isn't their primary, their main bay anymore, and they can jailbreak and not really worry about bricking it if they do it incorrectly. Just to emphasize, you can fix this by putting in a new battery, then syncing your console to the PSN once. So literally, you install a fresh CMOS battery and you log into the PSN with your login credentials. It syncs up the time, you're done, you're fine. We are just pointing out that the console will be bricked in some imaginary distant future when the PSN goes away. So, okay, so after all this here, it's inevitably going to crash. Then they finish up with the sentence of truth here. We're just pointing out that the console will be bricked in some imaginary distant future when the PSN goes away. So, I want to know down there in the comments section below if you're a PS4 user and your CMOS battery has died and you had to replace it. How was the process of replacing it? Was it a real B, or was it as simple as popping off a side panel and dropping in a $40 battery? I'm curious because I've never met anyone that has had to replace their CMOS battery. But yes, this is a potential thing. If Sony stops supporting PS4 on their servers and your battery dies because your PS4 is now, 15, 16 years old, we're talking about a distant future here, then yeah, this would be an issue. But as for the foreseeable future, this is not even something that should be trending and all over the lips of gamers like it is right now. It's all over YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you kids are doing nowadays. I can't keep up with the platforms y'all are on, but Vine, you kids on Vine, it's all over the place. MySpace. That's going to do it, guys. If you like the video, dropping a like helps it to get seen by more people, which in turn helps me grow my little channel, which I super duper appreciate. Super duper. Subscribe for more content like this. I do a lot of news in the gaming community and industry, as well as tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing. See y'all in the next one. Peace.